Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Let me go ahead and add our screen. Good morning. So I did do a couple of quick recaps, blow by blow, but not blow by blow, so we can keep up with what's going on with this trial. Don't think it's going to last very long, but I see how the details can get a little convoluted between Mike, aka Demorris Hunter, aka the guy from California, aka the neighbor downstairs, and Pete with the white van, who really name is Henry Fields. You know. Yeah, I saw she announced it. So yes, whoo, cause baby, trying to make me hold water, Lord have mercy. But yes, if you have not seen it, I don't see any particulars, so I won't announce any particulars. But it has been confirmed that Mariah is now going to be a survivor of cancer. I do know. Oh shit, that was long, 2 weeks. So they have finally started what will be a treatment for her. And but so I apologize, but I don't apologize because I would do it again. But I apologize on how they came. But when we were saying when WTF Wednesday will come back, we definitely wanted a WTF Wednesday when the stuff happened with Corey Richards and all the other stuff that was happening at the same time. And it just was never a good time. Okay. There was just a lot of testing and a lot of unknowns. So I apologize in advance. We really are not blowing everybody off, but we have to take care of each other. And we had to make sure that Mel was okay. And that with what seemed to be going towards a confirmation and all these other tests, we had to make sure that they were going to be okay. Okay. So WTF Wednesday. That's why Kayla said, I miss my girls, but don't worry, we coming back. Like we kind of started pushing to do as much as we can. As y'all can see, I'm not calling Mel during and say, oh, watch this trial. You got to watch this. She just can't right now. Okay. So if y'all catch me with my laptop and ATL, don't worry about me. Okay. I got to be an aunt. Okay. I done adopted that child. I always say me and Mel's friendship came from probably the unlikeliest and craziest of places, but it's been rough to hear something like that. That baby is so vibrant, so full of life, and she will survive. That's it. That's all. So I see that they have announced it. So next step in our journey. So yes, if you would like to, I seen that Laura said her and Tiffany are doing another amazing box. Y'all know they bring tears to eyes with those boxes because the way I've been walking around in 100-degree weather with my pop saying all over me. And now Dallas is into watches and chains, and he will not wear a sport watch. That was so cute because he thinks he's actually wearing my old Mickey Mouse watch from that like the first one I purchased. I used to work at the jewelry counter in Sears when I was in high school. And so that was one of the first things I purchased myself was one of the little Disney watches. So he's into those things. So now I let him wear the chain from Tiffany, and he just thought, he said, he was drippy. Okay. No tears for this box, but I'm just saying y'all bring tears to eyes. Like those boxes are so thoughtful and so heartfelt and so genuine and so intentional. It will make you cry. Okay. Because sometimes a lot of stuff go on and you just don't even, I'm not even gonna get started because I just had me a whole moment yesterday about being seen. Okay. Don't break. They've been so strong through all of this. It's been a long road to confirmation, and then even after confirmation, I think they made them wait like 2 weeks before they start talking about what to do for treatment. So that was my problem. Hell no, treat her now. Go back up. I was being the Miss J, but if I got to go be Miss J for that baby, I sure the fuck will. That way they don't kick me out the hospital. They kick me out. But yes, pray for my babies. But I hope that helps people understand more of the hiatus for just trial and just going live randomly and WTFs. It's just been a lot. It's like, oh, we can do WTF. Did you see what happened with Corey Richards? Did you see what happened with this? Did you see what happened with that? Mariah's got a scan. Can you see what happened with this? Did you see what happened with that? And it was just like, don't even worry about it. We'll get back to it. Okay. Yeah. That baby's 19. Male holds a lot. Male is the burden carrier for a lot. And so I just pray that she just give it to God. Just give it to God. It's going to be okay. Whew. But when I saw that, I just, as soon as I got ready to go live, I saw Laura's comment because I could see the comments before I go live all the way. And I said, let me go check her page. Make sure she announced it. And she did. So that's all the announcing of it I'm going to get. That's all the breath I'm breathing into it. The rest of this is for Mariah's journey to fight this. But that's all that word is getting out of me. But again, it wasn't anybody else's news to announce. It wasn't anybody's journey or process to announce. And our role is to support. Our role and our goal is to support her through this. Yeah. Did she see? Wrong phone. TikTok. Okay. Okay, got it. Yeah, she'll have a lot of support, a lot of love, and a lot of support. Y'all know I've been all over the place this week, so forgive me if I. It's been a mess this week. Why been a mess, y'all? I won't say it's been a mess. It's not a mess. It's beautiful. Life is beautiful. I've been a mess this week. Battery 100%. Mariah posted it. I see Mel posted it as well. I was just trying to see what details were posted and stuff like that. So that's all. I know. We're going to be here through it. But I did want to share. Let me see. Why do Big Unc always want to eat first thing in the morning, y'all? Why is y'all's uncle, cousin, brother texting me at 5:59 a.m. Olive Garden? Sir. Good morning, Chaz. Good morning. Good morning. Olive Garden. Whew. Yes. Oh, her yellow heart Yeah, so this will be a happy time. It's just, the season we're gonna have to go through, and we're gonna go through it with them. He'd be hungry first thing in the morning. These babies are so strong, and I love Mariah's little flip at the lip, little shade she be throwing. Yeah, she's young, she's strong, she's healthy. Otherwise, she'll be okay. And I remember the crazy thing is I remember two people my age when we were in our 20s. One had breast cancer, the other had Lori had breast cancer too, but it was just really crazy to be 20, 21 years old and we out here drinking and living and not really, and then we are friends. Somebody we grew up with, somebody I went to middle and high school with, like pop up with something like that, and it was just like whoa. And so, and then of course I've been through it with Aunt Wanda, with Aunt Diane. Also, Aunt Diane turned 80, 83, 80 something yesterday. So Aunt Wanda and Aunt Diane, if y'all didn't get to see it, Aunt Diane wanted to go to a drag brunch. So Aunt Wanda took her last weekend on the 28th, and they thought that was a sign because March 28th was my grandmother, their sister's birthday. She passed back in 2002. And so they thought that was a sign to go to this brunch, this drag brunch, because it was landed on their sister's birthday. So they went, y'all. Y'all know Aunt Diane. She was at the wedding. She was doing the dance. And yes, Aunt Diane is the seamstress, the matriarch of the family, but she's the seamstress and all of that. And she put the dresses together. Remember Talia ripped the dress? We had to get another dress, and she made a train and all that stuff. She made the shoe. She did the shoes and stuff with the fabric. So Aunt Diane, her birthday was yesterday, and she won some kind of walk at the drag show, y'all. She had her a ball. I'm trying to get the boys. Try to get the boys back to Ohio to see her and I wander this summer once they're out of school. And it looks like I'm gonna have to make my way to Atlanta before October. Man, listen, they are a mess. It made my little day yesterday because yesterday was tough. I don't know. Y'all know how they be those pages on Facebook, the vivid faces of the vanished and illicit deeds and what's all of them. Y'all know all them pages. To see my childhood friend's picture come across those pages, like you read those stories all the time, but you don't want to read it about somebody you know for real. Like, so seeing those start to pop up now, it's like, ugh, 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 ugh. And Fifth Flow. I wanted to know what he been convicted of. Mm-mm. I'm still stuck on not telling her mom or son what happened that night. I don't think I wouldn't have told her son. I don't understand not telling the mom unless the mom's with the son. I would talk to the mom separately, but I wouldn't have told no kid that their mama was having a party and then tumbled down the steps and they end up in their apartment with such. I wouldn't have told no child that, but I definitely would have talked to her mama alone. But the other thing I don't like too, and I'm just gonna say this, was apartment. It seemed like those apartments were close together. Even if it was across the hall, it was only 2-3 feet, right? So it seemed like being in that hall was like maybe like an echo chamber, like you gonna hear everything. I don't know if like nobody heard nothing. Everybody going to sleep, but don't nobody hear holes being punched in walls. And the best I could like by every stretch of the imagination, every which way we've seen it in court, and even understanding what happened to a family member trying to or attempting to strangle somebody. I thought he got popped on Theresa. I heard he got popped. Um, but I don't think strangulation takes a little while. Like you don't just go. It's not breaking the neck. You know what I mean? Like it's so I imagine there had to be something because it don't sound like Theresa had a problem speaking her piece, right? So if she was arguing with Joseph, yelling up in the hallway, you don't think she was yelling in that room in her house? Like nobody heard nothing, or they heard it and nobody said nothing. Like that's where I call bullshit with the butlers. One, say what it was. That wasn't no party. There's only a couple people there, right? It wasn't a party. The butlers had been there for a while. Fran Mike hadn't been there that long. It's something else to this. I just feel like it's something else to it. After all they did yesterday, remix, I don't know that they would be able. I'm just really wondering how much more. Yeah, but didn't he get? He got somebody had a popper, right? He got popped. Like he's okay, but I think this TMZ was saying he got popped. And I seen old Charleston White back at his antics.
Mr. Kewen, you are still under oath. And Mr. Self, you may examine.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Kewen.
Morning.
Let me make sure I understand because it was getting late last night. There were two types of evidence that you talked about that were admitted into evidence today, or yesterday, correct?
Yes, sir.
We primarily were talking about
I interrupted.
items such as purse.
Yes.
He's really pushing.
Yes, sir.
And
Charleston is really sick.
things like buccal swabs or DNA samples that were taken from liquid or blood.
Yes, sir.
And in addition to that, there were
We need some coffee.
oh,
Yes, sir.
Lots of fingerprint cards.
Yes, sir.
But you did not say whose fingerprints were on any of those cards, correct?
That is correct.
That's, from my understanding, going to be subject to when you get recalled as a witness in this case.
Yes, sir.
A little bit later. Okay. Sometimes when you take these as a crime scene technician, take a fingerprint sample, but when as an examiner, whatever the sample is not useful enough to actually make a conclusion from, correct?
Right. There are different, when you evaluate a print, there's times where we consider it no value, which means there's insufficient detail of the fingerprint there, ridge detail.
And with regard to any of the items or blood samples, or I call them fancy Q-tips, but the DNA samples that are in the fancy Q-tips and put in the pipettes, those are sent off to the FDLE lab, correct?
That is correct.
You don't draw any conclusions about whose DNA might be on those items.
No, sir.
But you are aware as a crime scene technician that sometimes those samples can go to the lab and produce unusable samples as well, correct?
I've never been personally involved in anything like that, but I can imagine that could be true.
Back when this event happened in 2002, you were in training, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I have at this time.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused at this time, recalled later?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, if you could just wait out in the hallway.
Yes, ma'am.
So what
Thank
you about to say he messed up on the fingerprints or something because he was in
Your
training?
next witness.
Like, what's that supposed to matter?
Hello, McDonald.
This courtroom is eerie. It looks so old. Who put that yellow on them panels? Oh, Lord. 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 Sir, go up in the uniform size, please. Just Jesus, the vest is sitting up top.
Yes.
You ain't chasing nobody.
Your name and spell your last name for the court reporter, please.
Troy Robert MacDonald, MacDonald.
It's too. Oh
Good
boy.
morning, sir.
What police agency are you employed by, sir?
Sanford Police Department.
And how long have you been an officer with the Sanford Police Department?
September of this year will mark 29 years.
So is it fair to say that you were employed as a police officer by the city of Sanford on May the 27th of 2002?
Yes, sir.
On May the 27th of 2002, were you dispatched to look for a vehicle that was connected to a missing
is
person
the problem.
reported out of
Yes,
Orlando?
supersized.
Yes, sir.
Where were you sent to look for this vehicle, sir?
25th and French, a specific location of the Walmart, I believe.
Walmart or Walgreens?
Walgreens, apologize.
Kind of run together.
Yeah, 25th and French though.
And did you find the vehicle?
I did.
This is the not the Andy Griff show. Oh, y'all lucky I
May I
can't.
approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Sir, I'm showing you what.
I got to go turn the coffee on now. I can't make it through life like this. I can't make it through life like this.
Yes, I do.
Is that the vehicle that you found that evening?
Yes, it is.
Does it appear in substantially the same condition as it was when you found it, but for the trunk being open?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. And publish, Your Honor.
Has it been admitted?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you may.
And turning around, this is the photograph on the screen of the 8 by 10 that I just showed you. Is it not up?
Yes, it is.
Now, officer, when you arrived on scene, was anyone with the car?
No, sir.
What happened next?
Based on the information I had and to basically go there, attempt to locate the vehicle and the circumstances surrounding it, I immediately deemed it a crime scene and basically initiated putting up crime scene tape around the area and initiating, I believe, a crime scene log at that time, controlling the area.
Did other law enforcement personnel ultimately arrive on scene?
Subsequently, yeah, I can't remember exactly who came in, but basically there were a few that came in after I controlled the scene.
Did the Sanford Fire Department also respond to the scene?
They did a little bit after the fact, yes.
Were you present when the Sanford Fire Department engine arrived?
I probably was, sir, of course, but I just cannot physically remember seeing them there. But of course, there were several people that responded.
As you sit here today, do you remember any of the fire department personnel that were on scene?
Not at the time, only through a little bit of reflection.
Okay, that's fine. Were you involved, Officer McDonald, in gaining entry to this vehicle?
I was not.
Thank you, sir.
Cross-examination.
Morning, Officer McDonald.
Good morning, sir.
Where is this Walgreens located?
It's at 25th Street and 1792 in Sanford.
In San. And about how far is that from here?
Approximately 20 miles.
And how far is that Walgreens off of Interstate 4?
Approximately 5 to 6 miles.
And you arrived on it was the evening of May 27th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it would have been about, according to your report, it says 21:53. Does that sound right?
That would be right.
And for those of us who don't speak military time, what time is 21:53?
9.
Just about
Yeah.
just about 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Right. And what time did the Sanford Police Fire Department get there?
I do not recall, sir.
If I showed you a report, would that refresh your recollection?
Absolutely.
Or may I approach the witness? Can I ask you to look at that, read the report specifically there? Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes, it does vaguely. Arrived 2300, 11 p.m.
So 2300. The fire department got there at 2300, which is about 11 p.m. And you had gotten there at about 9 p.m.
Okay. Yes, sir.
That sound right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, ma'am, this witness may be released.
I have a juror. We have a question from a juror. I could have the attorneys approach, please. Officer McDonald, if you arrived at 21:53, is that almost 10 p.m. or almost 9 p.m.?
That's almost 10 p.m., Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any follow-up on behalf of the state?
No, ma'am.
Any follow-up on behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness now, any additional questions from the jury? May this witness then be excused?
Yes, ma'am.
You are free to go, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
state, you may call your next witness.
Michael Leon.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can have a seat. Could you state your name and spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
Yes, it's Michael Uglione, Uglione.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm retired
How long have you been retired?
since 2017
Prior to 2017, how were you employed?
with the Sanford Fire Department.
And how long did you serve as a firefighter with Sanford Fire Department?
A little over 25 years.
And what rank did you hold when you left, when you retired, sir?
Was a lieutenant.
And when you say that you were a lieutenant, what does that mean? What are your duties as a lieutenant, just in broad terms?
In charge of an engine company and a rescue company with about 4 firefighters in a fire station.
Okay. And you would be the senior officer on duty.
At that station, that's correct.
What was your rank in May of 2002?
Lieutenant,
So you were in charge of an engine company at that time.
that's correct.
On May the 27th of 2002, did your engine company have the occasion to be dispatched to the Walgreens parking lot in Sanford, Florida?
Yes,
And what was the nature of the call that you were dispatched to?
it was to assist police on scene.
That's kind of a generic call, isn't it?
Correct.
Not an emergency call.
No, it was non-emergency.
And when you arrived on scene, what did you find?
In the parking lot, there was a vehicle and several Sanford police officers on the outside of the perimeter of the parking lot.
Would that be basically a crime scene perimeter had been set up?
I don't believe it was set up at that point when we first arrived, but after we'd been there, I think they were putting up some tape.
Were there, let me ask you this, were there law enforcement personnel from any other agency on scene?
Yes,
And what agency was that, sir?
I believe Orlando PD.
Yeah, sir, if I could get you to look at the screen, I think it shows in front of you. I'm showing you what's marked and is in evidence as State's Exhibit 12. Do you recognize that vehicle?
Vaguely, yes.
Does that appear to be the vehicle that you found when you responded to the Walgreens parking lot in 2002?
I believe it to be, yes.
And other than the trunk being open, is that vehicle in substantially the same condition as it was when you arrived?
Yes.
Now, you said that there were personnel from the Orlando Police Department on scene, as well as Sanford Police Department personnel. What were you ultimately requested to do with this car to assist the police department?
The OPD officer wanted me to open the trunk.
And did you do that?
No, he didn't want to create a lot of damage to the vehicle, so we never opened the trunk.
Were you able to gain entry into the vehicle?
Yes,
How did you do that?
through the vent window of the front of the vehicle.
And for those of us that may not remember what a vent window is, could you describe that for us, sir?
Yes, it's a triangular shaped window next to the square window in the front seat of the vehicle.
There's one on both sides, right?
Yes, usually.
Did you have to break the vent window or were you able to pop it out somehow?
I don't recall. I think maybe it might have been pushed open and the lock may have broken to access the inside lock.
Were you able ultimately to gain entry into the vehicle?
Yes.
After you gained entry into the vehicle, what did you do next?
We were trying to access the trunk of the vehicle. So myself and an OPD officer got in the back of the vehicle and tried to remove the back seat of the vehicle.
Were you able to do that?
Yeah.
Did you ever see what was in the trunk of the vehicle?
No.
After you attempted to remove the back seat of the vehicle accompanied by an Orlando Police Department officer, what did you do?
I believe we exited the vehicle and left the scene with them. We were unable to access the back seat, and we couldn't do. We didn't want to do a lot of damage to the trunk. OPD said that they would call a locksmith.
So you had done what you were sent to do,
Correct.
accomplished your task,
Yes.
and then went back to the station and did whatever you did.
Correct.
No further questions. Thank you, sir.
Cross-examination.
Mr. Uglione,
Good morning.
do you have an independent recollection of this event in 2002?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay. Do you, and you just testified on direct examination that you think you might have pushed in the vent and gained access that way. Is it possible that you could have broken the window?
It wasn't myself. It was another firefighter, and I believe he might have pushed the articulating triangle window, and the lock may have popped off. I don't recall.
So if we're looking at the photograph that's before you, the A pillar of a car is the post that connects the passenger window and the windshield, correct?
Correct.
And the B pillar is the pillar of the car that is just past the passenger door before the rear doors, correct?
Correct.
So the square portion of the window would be between the B pillar and that square portion, and the vent part would be the triangle in that front portion of the window, right?
Correct.
And so you're saying another officer may have pushed that and the window may have broken?
I believe it was another firefighter that made entry into.
Because I'll ask you to look on the photograph by the right front tire, there appears to be glass particles on the ground. Is that consistent with what happened?
I don't recall it being broken to the point where glass had broken, but I don't recall.
I'm going to show you what's been placed into evidence as Exhibit 3. It's a composite exhibit. Looks like photograph number 2 of the composite exhibit number 3. Does that appear to be the vent window?
Yes.
And does that appear to be broken to you?
Yes.
And in photograph number 3, does that appear to have shards of glass on the ground by the front right tire?
Yes.
And in photograph 11, does that appear to be shards of glass on the passenger floorboard?
Yes.
Does that look substantially how it did when you saw it in 2002?
I really don't recall.
Thank you. How far is this Walgreens from I-4?
The Walgreens in Sanford from I-4,
Yes.
maybe 5 miles.
Thank you. How far is the Walgreens in Sanford from here, where we are right today?
15 miles maybe?
Thanks.
All right, any redirect?
No, ma'am, this witness may be released.
All right, any questions from the jurors? I see none. You are free to go. Thank you. State, you may call your next witness.
State calls Lewis Kane.
Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Sir, could you state your name and spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
Louis Kane, C-A-I-N.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Mr. Kane, how are you employed now?
I just came back contractually with the city of Orlando.
And you're a contract employee doing what?
Currently, ID fingerprinting.
And how long have you been a contract employee at the Orlando Police Department?
I was with Vehicle for Hire prior to getting transferred over to the ID unit. So since August of last year, 5 months?
Okay. And prior to becoming employed as a contractor or contract employee with the Orlando Police Department, how were you employed?
I was a crime scene investigator with the City of Orlando Police Department. I retired in 2021.
How long were you a crime scene investigator with the Orlando Police Department?
20 years, sir.
What sort of training with specific emphasis on the collection of rolled fingerprints did you have, sir?
We usually have FTOs, field training officers, which we have 4 phases. Photography, the first phase is with your field training officer where you observe. The second part of it is you're more hands-on. And then the third phase of it is, you're on your own, but they're monitoring what you're doing. So we went to the morgue and rolled fingerprints on a regular basis on cases that we were involved in.
Okay, and explain to the jury, if you would, please, sir, what a rolled fingerprint is as opposed to a latent fingerprint.
A rolled fingerprint would be where we roll the fingerprints, either on a live person or a deceased person. So it would be, digit to digit inked rolled fingerprints. We do all 10 fingers.
And how do you mechanically do this?
It's physical. You take your ink, usually the ink pads, which are more, feasible for when you're out in the field or at the morgue. And you ink the subject's fingers and then you roll them digit to digit.
And you try to roll fingernail to fingernail, do you not?
Yes, sir, end to end.
In May of 2002, you were employed as a crime scene investigator, or crime scene technician with the Orlando Police Department, were you not?
Yes, sir.
And on May the 28th of 2002, as a part of your duties as a crime scene technician, were you directed to attend the autopsy of a deceased individual known as Theresa Ann Green?
I don't recall the actual autopsy, but I did roll her fingerprints. Yes, sir.
And you rolled fingerprints from Theresa Ann Green, did you not?
Yes.
And
Correct.
where did you do that?
At the morgue.
Okay.
The old morgue, sir, 1401 Lucerne Terrace.
Okay.
not the new one. It's moved since.
I may approach, Your Honor.
You may.
Mr. Kane, I'm showing you what is marked for identification as State's Exhibit AH Alpha Hotel. Take a look at this if you would, and tell me if you can identify it.
It's the latent printed unit evidence envelope that shows that the submitting CST was me, and the deceased victim's name, Theresa Green's 10 print card, postmortem fingerprints, 10 postmortem fingerprints.
Go ahead and open it up if you would.
Do you have a pair of gloves I can borrow? I can tear it open. I just need some gloves. Yeah, if I'm gonna pull these cards out. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take a look at it if you would, sir. Those appear to be in the same condition that they were in when you collected those fingerprints in May of 2002.
Let's see. Yes.
This time, Your Honor, on all for State's Exhibit AH in the evidence as the next consecutive number.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
AH will be admitted as State's Exhibit 36.
Before you put those back in there, let me get you to take one of the fingerprint cards out of the envelope, please. Just a random card is fine.
Okay.
And would you hold that up for the jury so they can see what exactly we're talking about? First, you're showing the jury the backside of the card, which contains written information describing what?
This shows the date, the case number, who lifted the latent print, and the deceased person's name. And then on the back is the finger that you specifically put on the card.
Yeah.
So you would put typically one finger on a separate card.
Okay. And this is a typical ink fingerprint, or rolling fingerprint that you collected from the deceased.
Yes, correct.
Thank you, sir. You can go ahead and put those back, and then we return this to the clerk.
You're welcome.
I have no further questions for Mr. Kane. Thank you, sir. No question.
All right, may this witness be excused?
You may, Your Honor. With our thanks.
You are free to go, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
State, you may call your next witness.
State recalls Howard McKinney.
Say the thing, Manda. this jury, they got the wrong, they need to, y'all, we got to start responding for jury service if we could ask questions, because they clearly need the right type of jurors up there on the panel, because these people don't have enough questions for me, because baby, I got 6 questions. I need all of them answered, and there might be 2 follow-ups.
Yes, ma'am.
Remain quiet.
Morning again.
Good morning.
Can you please reintroduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Howard Kuhn. My name is spelled Kuehn.
When we talked yesterday and this morning, you mentioned that you were a fingerprint analyst for the Orlando Police Department, right?
That is correct.
We talked a little bit about your background as far as fingerprints are concerned, but how long have you been a fingerprint analyst?
Been a fingerprint analyst from 2004 to 2020 when I retired, so 16 years.
Can you describe for the jury your educational background and the training you received to allow you to do fingerprint analysis and comparison?
Well, all of the training that I received in education was on the job. I trained for 15 months or job shadowed 15 months with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Slate and Print Unit, and their senior examiner, where I was involved in working cases, practicing on OPD cases that was overseen by those examiners. And during that time, I went to several courses. Some were 40-hour, some were 80-hour classroom courses on latent print examination, palm print examination, and other various aspects of that.
And who put on some of those various courses you went to?
Those were put on by the International Association of Identification, or the IAI as it's referred to.
What is IA?
International Association of Identification.
And were you also subject to regular proficiency training and oversight and things like that?
Yes, sir.
We've talked a lot about fingerprints, but what exactly is a fingerprint?
A fingerprint is the ridges on the surfaces of your fingers and palms, the little ridge lines and different areas like that.
How are fingerprints potentially left on a surface?
Through sweat, through residue of some other kind. If you had a foreign substance on your hands, say you had ink on your hands or something, or grease, and you touch something, you could leave it there. But mostly it's just by the perspiration in your fingers and palms.
Are fingerprints made up predominantly of water?
Yes.
You talked yesterday about a latent fingerprint, or a fingerprint that can't be seen by the naked eye that you left on something. What is a known or an inked fingerprint?
A known or an inked fingerprint is a set of prints that where, as we discussed, you'll take a thin layer of printer's ink, black printer's ink, put it on each individual area of the hand, or else if you have an ink pad, you'll take one finger at a time, roll it on there, and then place it onto a piece of paper or a fingerprint card with a white contrasting background.
Like the fingerprints you took from the defendant that you talked about yesterday?
Yes, sir.
What is a fingerprint of value?
Fingerprint of value would be where there is sufficient ridge detail. And in other words, there has to be enough detail and clarity in the print to actually compare it to something else.
And what is meant if a print is of no value?
No value would mean that there was insufficient detail. Either it was smudged or it was just a little bitty piece. You can see ridge detail, but there's just not enough there to do a comparison.
Was it common when you were a fingerprint analyst for a crime scene technician to lift a latent fingerprint from a scene, bring it to you, and you look at it and say, there's just not enough information or it's of no value?
That is correct.
If a fingerprint that was provided to you, lifted by a crime scene technician, was determined to have no value, does that mean the crime scene technician did something wrong in lifting the print?
No, that does not.
Why not? What do you explain that?
Well, again, it's when you touch something, you're not just sitting there and putting your hand down on something. You might just briefly brush up, like if I were to do this to open this door. It doesn't mean I'm going to leave a print there. Also depends on the type of surface and whether, again, you're just not purposely pressing down to leave a print. So when you process something, whatever you see of any kind of ridge detail at all, you send it in and then we evaluate it in the latent print unit.
So I'm gathering by that answer, real life is not TV. Simply because you touch something does not mean you will always leave a fingerprint there.
Yes, sir.
Would that even be the case on a surface? I mean, I've been touching this podium for several days. Does that necessarily mean my fingerprints are going to be all over this?
That does not mean that they would be anything that would actually show up with any detail in it.
Can you explain to the jury briefly how you do a fingerprint analysis comparison? How you take a latent fingerprint collected from a crime scene and compare it to known fingerprints of somebody to see if they match?
Well, the first thing you would do is if there's an entire fingerprint pattern there, and there's three types of patterns, there's whorls, loops, and arches. And a whorl pattern is a circular pattern. A loop would be just like I described. And an arch basically is where the ridge flows from one side, goes up to a peak, and comes down out the other side. If you have an entire latent print that has those characteristics, the class, what we call class characteristics, then you can look at an inked fingerprint card immediately. And if the latent print is a whorl print, but there are no whorl prints on that inked card, then you know that it's automatically not it. It's when you don't have the actual pattern is when you look for individual characteristics. And there are several of those that you would look at.
Is that predominantly what you did for many years at the Orlando Police Department?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I request permission to allow this witness to provide opinion testimony in the area of fingerprint analysis and comparison pursuant to the evidence code.
Any voir dire on qualification? He may be permitted to render his opinion.
In this case, were you asked to analyze the latent fingerprints that were collected by crime scene technicians at various scenes, you included, number one, to determine if those fingerprints were of value, and if so, to compare them to several known individuals?
Yes, sir.
Had these fingerprints that were collected at the various scenes in this case, were they initially compared by a different analyst back in 2002?
Yes, they were.
Is that analyst currently deceased?
Yes, he is.
Now, have you gone back and re-examined those fingerprints and compared them to known fingerprints?
Yes.
Did you do an independent examination?
Yes.
Were you provided known fingerprints of Theresa Green that were rolled by crime scene technician Lewis Kane at her autopsy?
Yes, I did.
Showing us and introduce the state exhibit 36. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize that item?
Recognize these items as being the postmortem prints of Theresa Green taken by CST Lewis Kane. On the cards, her name is listed, the exact location as in right palm, right hand. And on the smaller cards are individuals of the fingers, which contain the case number, the date the prints were taken, the CST's name, Lewis Kane, and the case number, the victim's date of birth and such.
When you analyze fingerprints, do you note anything on the fingerprints, the cards, after you look at them, like your initials or anything like that?
Yes, depending on whether it's an identification or if it's not identified or if it's no value, that will be noted on the card.
Did you also obtain known recorded fingerprints of Theresa Green from the records of Orlando Police Department taken before she was killed?
Yes.
This time, state would move states AJ into evidence. Known fingerprints of Theresa Green, date of birth 8/8/1963. They are a business record certification is attached and proper notice has been given. Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
They will be admitted as State's Exhibit 37.
Showing you Mr. Mark, the state's exhibit 37, or introduces 37. Do you recognize those fingerprints?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
It's an envelope containing record fingerprints of Theresa Green. with the OPD case number listed on the outside.
Can you open that item up, look inside, and tell me if you recognize it?
Yes, sir.
What's inside?
Is a set of record fingerprints, inked fingerprints, containing the name Theresa Green, date of birth.
What's the date of birth?
Date of birth is August 8th, 1963.
Is there a date that those fingerprints were recorded?
Yes. As best I can make out from this writing, it appears to be 1/27 of 2015. No, it can't be 2015. I'm sorry,
It's my mama's birthday and my bonus baby's
The
birthday.
date is smudged. Yes, I can't make it out.
Does Orlando Police Department keep fingerprints like this that are rolled from individuals in their records?
Yes,
And does Orlando Police Department obtain fingerprints from individuals for various reasons, employment purposes, a variety?
right. You could get them for weapons permits, a teaching job, any type of situation like that.
Do those known fingerprints also contain a signature purported to be Theresa Green?
Yes, it does.
Did you compare the known signed fingerprints of Theresa Green or in the Orlando Police Department records to the fingerprints of the person that Lewis Kane rolled at the autopsy in this case?
I did.
And what were your results?
I determined they were the same person.
Confirming that the victim found in the trunk of this car was in fact Theresa Green.
Yes, sir.
These are
Okay. Okay, there's that.
Were you also able to obtain similar known recorded fingerprints from Octavius Hayes, the victim's son?
Yes,
Did you also obtain known fingerprints of other individuals, Jason James Jones, Rosa Marie Jones, and Loretta Tomlin, relatives of the victim?
yes,
Did you also review known fingerprints, the known fingerprints that you rolled of the defendant that you talked about yesterday?
yes, I did.
Showing you State's Exhibit 35, introducing the evidence, the known fingerprints of the defendant. So at this point, I want to turn to your actual analysis of the latent fingerprints and your comparison to the known fingerprints of the people we just talked about.
All right.
Did you examine the various latent fingerprint cards submitted by crime scene technicians Karen Livengood, Doug Thomas, Marissa Gerber, now Kuzma, as well as fingerprints you lifted from the Bay Apartment Complex, Bay Run Bay Apartment Complex, as well as a white Oldsmobile?
Yes, sir.
If the fingerprint cards were of sufficient value, did you compare those cards of value to the known fingerprints of the various people we talked about?
I did.
Because these fingerprint cards were collected from various places, I'm going to kind of group them based on location to try to keep it a little easier. So I want to start with the various fingerprint cards lifted from the stairwell area and the exterior doors of apartment 11 and 12 in the apartment complex. Okay? And the first one, showing you State's Exhibit 2 and 22, the interviews and evidence. how many total print cards were lifted from that stairwell apartment complex area?
Give me one moment here. It would have been one,
Total?
four total cards.
How many fingerprints total were in, are there sometimes multiple fingerprints are on one card?
There can be multiple impressions on one card.
So how many total impressions were on those cards?
On these, there was just one impression on each card.
Of those fingerprints, how many of them were of value that you could actually use to compare?
May I refer to my report?
If we'll refresh your memory, please go ahead. Force prevention.
There were two that were no value.
Did you compare those prints of value collected from that stairwell area to the known prints of Demorris Hunter, Theresa Green, Octavius Hayes, Jason Jones, Rosemary Jones, and Loretta Thompson?
Yes, I did.
And what were your results?
They were not identified.
So those prints of value from the stairwell did not match any of
They did not match any of the individuals mentioned. No,
Were you ever able to identify who left those prints?
no, we were not.
Considering those prints were collected from a stairwell accessible to the public and delivery people and things like that, is that surprising to you?
No, it is not. Sure. Oh, apologize.
Referring to the latent fingerprints collected from inside apartment 9, the apartment associated with Demorris Hunter, how many fingerprints were lifted? While you're looking at that, I'm going to show you. Show you. States Exhibit 29, 32, and 31.
Based on my count, there were 10.
How many of those 10 fingerprints collected from apartment number 9 were of comparison value?
Eight.
And of those 8 fingerprints, did any of them match the known fingerprints of the defendant, Demorris Hunter?
Yes, they did.
How many?
Six.
Is that at all surprising considering he lived in that apartment?
That is not surprising. No.
So of the 2 remaining fingerprints of value, did either of those fingerprints match the known fingerprints of Theresa Green?
Yes, one fingerprint did match Theresa Green.
And were you ever able to identify the remaining fingerprint of value that was collected from the defendant's apartment?
No, we were not.
Referring now to the latent fingerprints collected or photographed from the inside of the victim's apartment, apartment number 11, and not counting the fingerprints taken from the miscellaneous papers that we talked about. How many of those fingerprints were examined?
All of them were examined.
How many of them were from the victim's, inside of the victim's apartment, not including the ones from the miscellaneous papers?
Four.
How many of those fingerprints were of value?
Three.
Did any of those 3 fingerprints from the inside of the victim's apartment match the victim?
Yes, it did.
How many?
One.
Again, not surprising considering you lived there, right?
Yes, sir.
Did any of those fingerprints of value match her son, Octavius Hayes?
Yes.
How many?
One.
Did that
I
remain?
apologize. I'm sorry. Two.
Did any of the fingerprints from the inside of the victim's apartment match the defendant?
No.
Were there other fingerprints that weren't of value that were collected you couldn't match because they weren't of sufficient value?
Right. There were several that were no value.
They approach again, Your Honor? Showing you State's Exhibit 26.
These are the way- okay.
Don't
Right.
get mad at me. I just provided you States 26, which I believe are the photographs and fingerprints collected by CST Live and Good. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
From the miscellaneous papers and things?
Yes.
Okay. Referring to those fingerprints, how many prints were present?
$18.
how many of those fingerprints were of comparison value?
Four.
Of those, did any of them match, of those fingerprints of value collected from the victim's bedroom, did any of them match the victim's fingerprints?
Yes, sir.
How many?
One.
Of the remaining 3 prints of value from the victim's bedroom, did any of them match the defendant's?
No.
Did any of them match Octavia's Hayes?
Yes, sir.
How many?
One. I apologize. Yes, one.
Of the fingerprints collected from the victim's bedroom in the apartment, did any of them match the known fingerprints of the victim's relatives, specifically Loretta Tomlin, Ms. Jones, or any of the other people that we spoke of?
Yes, Tomlin and Jones.
And where were those prints were taken from the inside of the victim's apartment?
Yes, on some of the items that were processed, yes.
Package those items up for me, sir. Thank you. I'm showing you State's Exhibit 5, fingerprints collected by Marissa Gerber, now Marissa Kuzma, from the white vehicle at Walgreens. Did you analyze those fingerprints as well?
Yes, I did.
How many fingerprints are present there?
There were 4 cards, 4 lift cards.
How many of them were of value?
2 were of no value.
2 were of no value?
Yes, sir.
Did you compare the fingerprints of value collected from the victim's white Oldsmobile to the known fingerprints of Theresa Green, Demorris Hunter, Octavius Hayes, and the other people we've spoken about?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to match any of those fingerprints of value to any of those individuals?
No, I was not.
What would fire or extreme heat do to the person's ability to lift a fingerprint from the surface?
Just like any type of atmospheric condition, rain, the heat, as you mentioned, the oxidation on a vehicle, all of those things could play a factor in being able to actually lift a print of value off of something.
If a vehicle was engulfed in flames, would you expect, based on that extreme heat, to have fingerprints be able to be lifted?
I would not expect it to be very good odds.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Mr. Kuhn.
Good morning again.
Hate to do this to you. You need to go for us, but I'm going to talk about the fingerprints in a slightly different way than what the state did. The state had you go through them sort of room by room, and I'm going to talk about the fingerprints as it relates to each fingerprint card or photograph gets a Q number in your system. Is that correct?
That is the way we did it at the time. Yes, sir.
And in that queue system, each of those either cards or photographs of a print have an assigned number. That number is then tracked by the crime scene technician, and then it's ultimately given to the fingerprint examiner to make a determination on that card or that photograph, correct?
Well, as the latent examiner, I would have been the one to apply the Q number to each card. The cards would be turned in as a group or however many they turned in at a time. And then we would, and the way I would try to do it is keep them in some sort of a sequential order because we had multiple crime scene technicians turning things in, try to keep everything in the same order. So once everything was submitted, it would be assigned a number.
And in this case, you kind of uniquely positioned that you were both a crime scene technician on the scene of this crime, but also later in your promoted job was the fingerprint examiner, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And so starting altogether, the photographs, the fingerprints that we're talking about were given Q numbers by you, Q1 through Q45, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so, and I forgot, and I may have actually made an error in at one point. I forgot that at one point, the crime scene technicians, and I believe you may have been part of this at the time, you took fingerprints from apartment 9 and fingerprints from apartment 11, and you actually put them in the same envelope. They were labeled so that everyone knew what was from apartment 9 and what was from apartment 11, but they were given sequential, or they were put in the same envelope, correct?
That is correct. Well, we didn't put them in the envelope, but yeah.
Whoever put them in the envelope, put them in the envelope. But they were from 2 different apartments.
Yes.
So let's go through each of these cues one by one and just make sure that we have a perfect understanding of what was determined and where each of these fingerprints came from. Cue number 1 was from apartment 9 and from a flowered bowl that was next to the refrigerator, correct?
That is correct.
And that was determined to be, to match the comparison with Demorris Hunter, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you would expect that since he lived in apartment number 9.
Yes.
And cue number 2 also was from a flowered bowl next to the refrigerator that was determined to be a match with Demorris Hunter.
Yes, sir.
And cue number 3 was a flowered bowl next to the refrigerator. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Cue number 4, the exterior of a flowered bowl next to the refrigerator in apartment number 9 also came back to Mr. Hunter.
Yes, sir.
And cue 5, the exterior of a beige cup in the kitchen on the shelf above the sink in apartment 9 came back to Mr. Hunter, correct?
Yes, sir.
And cue 6 was the exterior on a beige cup in the kitchen on the shelf above the sink, apartment 9, also came back to Mr. Hunter.
Yes, sir.
Q7 is actually a lift from apartment 11, which would have been Miss Green's apartment, correct?
Q7, yes, it is.
And that would have been in the kitchen. What W counter would that stand for?
Would be west.
West counter in apartment 11 on a small drinking glass. That fingerprint was identified to the victim, Theresa Green, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would also expect in Miss Green's apartment to have Miss Green's fingerprints on certain items in the house, correct?
Yes, correct.
While we're at it, when you were talking about known samples, you had known samples of fingerprints from, I believe, from Demorris Hunter, from Octavius Hayes, from the decedent Theresa Green, from Jason James Jones. Do you know who that is?
No,
Rosemary Jones. Do you know who that is?
I only know by what we've talked about here.
Okay. Loretta Tomlin. Do you know who that is?
Same.
Okay. So you didn't know who those persons were, but you didn't have known samples from Joseph Butler, correct?
I have no idea who that is.
You didn't have it from Joyce Butler, correct?
I have no idea who they are.
And you didn't have it from Lisa Moore or Lisa Moore Turner, did you?
No,
So you weren't able to compare any of these fingerprints to the Butlers or Miss Moore, correct?
I was never given those names to compare.
Okay. Getting back to our Q numbers and our fingerprints. Q number 8 is the exterior of the drinking glass located in the kitchen sink in the green tub in apartment 11. That was identified to the decedent, Miss Green, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q9 on a plate in the kitchen sink in apartment 11 was also identified to Miss Green, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q10, the external front stove in apartment 9 was identified to Miss Green, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q11, the exterior on a microwave in apartment 11 first lift had no value, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Meaning you weren't able to determine from that fingerprint whose it was.
Yes, sir. There was insufficient ridge detail.
Insufficient ridge detail, couldn't make enough, didn't have enough data to make that determination.
Yes, sir.
The Q12, the external on microwave in apartment 11, the second lift was identified as Theresa Green, the decedent, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Q13, on the west of the inside wood trim of the kitchen in apartment 11, that was identified as Octavius Hayes, the son of the decedent, correct?
Correct.
Q14 on the west kitchen counter in apartment 11 was identified as Rosemarie Jones.
Yes, sir.
You said you did not know who that is.
I did not know who any of those people are.
Okay. Q15, the interior freezer left side in apartment 9, we're going back downstairs to apartment 9 now, that was not identified,
That is correct.
meaning there was a sufficient print, enough ridges, enough islands, enough loops, enough all of that to make a determination. You just didn't have a standard by which to compare it to.
That is correct.
And it did not hit in the APHIS system.
It did not.
Q16, we're back up in apartment 11 now. The exterior of glass, drinking glass located in the kitchen sink in the green tub in apartment 11, not identified. Again, enough information, but you weren't able to determine who that belonged to.
That is correct.
But you know that it wasn't Demorris Hunter because you had his known standard and could compare it against that, correct?
That is correct.
So you could rule him out.
On that print, yes.
On that print, thank you. And on Q17, on the east side of the inside wood trim of the kitchen in apartment 11, again, not identified, meaning didn't have sufficient, you had a sufficient print, but didn't have sufficient standards to compare it to, or didn't hit in the APHIS system, correct?
Right. I don't know if that print was actually searched on APHIS. I would have to look into more notes, but that, yes, it was not identified to anything we had.
But you could specifically rule out Mr. Hunter on that because you had his standards.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Q18, the external of the drinking glass located in the kitchen sink in the green in the green tub in apartment 11, no value. In other words, not enough data from the print itself to make a determination. Q19, the beige cup going back down to apartment 9, that had no value.
Yes.
Okay. Q20, back up to apartment 11, the external of drinking glass located in the kitchen sink in the green tub in apartment 11 had no value, correct?
Correct.
And Q21 on the plate from the shelf in the kitchen in apartment 9 back downstairs, no value.
That is correct.
Not enough ridges and loops to make a determination, correct?
Not enough ridge detail. Yes, sir.
Going to exhibit Q22. This was pulled a print card or photograph, or there is a photograph latent prints by CST Live and Good. This came from the Black Daily Planner and looks like it was a receipt from 2001 House of Hope, August 12th. Was located in the victim's bed in apartment 11. That was identified to Theresa Green, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q23, the interior of the victim's front door, 29 inches from the left side of the door, 50 inches from the bottom of the door in apartment 11. That was identified to Theresa Green.
Yes, sir.
Q24, interior of victim's door, 30 inches from the left side, 55 inches from the bottom of the door. That was identified as the decedent's son, Octavius Hayes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q25, the door frame to the victim's southeast bedroom, north side of the frame, 4.5 inches from the left rear door frame, 56 inches from the floor. That was identified as Octavius Hayes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q26, one of the miscellaneous pieces of paper from the victim's purse that was on the bed, that was identified as Jason Jones.
Yes, sir.
And you'd said you did not know who Jason Jones was.
I did not know who he was.
And oftentimes receipts are like thermal paper, correct?
Yes, sir.
So when we talk about some surfaces are better than others in terms of leaving, where you can leave a fingerprint, correct?
Correct.
One of those types of surface are receipts, like thermal paper, because it has ink that is sometimes soft or malleable to the touch, correct?
Yes, sir.
What are some other examples of surfaces that are oftentimes good surfaces where fingerprints can be left?
Well, the best is going to be paper, obviously. Metal, glass, those are usually your best three.
Which is why, as a crime scene technician, and I'll ask you to put your crime scene technician hat back on for a second, one of the things that you check oftentimes is door handles, correct?
Correct.
Handles to refrigerators,
Yes.
sometimes surfaces to the refrigerator if you have.
If they're not rough edges.
Right. Sometimes around sinks on the flat surfaces.
The porcelain.
Porcelain or laminate around the sinks, correct? Okay, getting back to our cues now. Take a little break from the cues. We'll get back to the cues now. Q27, a piece of paper, community thrift store from the victim's purse that had no value, correct?
That is correct.
In other words, not enough ridges and ridge data to make a determination. Q28, House of Hope paper from the day planner from the victim's purse. That was identified as Loretta Tomlin, correct?
Correct.
Q29, House of Hope paper from the day planner from the victim's purse, again, identified as Loretta Tomlin, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q30, map paper from the day planner from the victim's purse, no value,
Correct.
Q31, front of direct TV network request form from the victim's purse, no value, correct?
Correct.
Q32, front of direct TV network request form, victim's purse, no value, correct?
Yes, sir.
Q33, located interior front door just above the door handle in apartment 11, no value, correct?
Correct.
Moving on to Q34, this is, it appears to be coming from the left side of the bathroom sink counter, top, first lift. That was identified as Rosemary Jones, correct?
Yes, sir.
This would have been, if you have your recollection of the apartment in apartment 11, this would have been the sink countertop near where the watch was photographed. Is that correct?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Q35, left side of bathroom sink counter, second lift, identified as Rosemary Jones, correct?
Correct.
Q36, exterior cover of white ceiling fan found on floor of victim's bedroom, no value, correct?
Correct.
Directing your attention to Q37, these appear to be coming from the fingerprints lifted by CSTD Thomas from the stairwell. That's the stairwell that connects between apartment 11 and apartment 12 that runs down. Q37, the east wall of the stairwell, 24 inches above the handrail, 17 inches north of apartment 11 on the door trim. Again, that is not identified, correct?
Correct.
Meaning there was a sufficient sample from that latent card that was lifted, but it did not match any of the known standards that you had, correct?
Correct.
So in other words, it did not belong to Demorris Hunter because you had his standard, correct?
Correct.
But you don't know who it who it matched because you didn't either have a standard or it didn't have a hit in the APHIS system.
Correct.
We talk about what the APHIS system was for just a second.
Sure.
So the APHIS system is what?
Stands for the Automated Fingerprint Identification System.
So if someone has fingerprints that have been entered into that system and you enter an unknown sufficient sample, it will sometimes match. It would match, if it matches somebody in the system, you would then know who that was.
Well, what it'll do is, it's changed quite a bit since I last used it,
Sir,
but the algorithms have changed. It's much more efficient nowadays. But what you would do is you would go ahead and you would capture the image of the print you wanted, whether it be a camera on the APHIS system. You will capture that, send it in, you will mark on it. It will automatically mark points for you, or characteristics, I should say, or we can mark them manually ourselves. Then you go ahead and enter it in. Depending on the time of the day, it could come back in 5 minutes, or it could be the next day, depending on how many people are using it. But what it will do, it will not give us an exact match. It will give us a list of anywhere from 20 to 30 candidates, and we never know their name. All we are given is a state ID number that's attached to those record prints. It'll be us up to look at it on the screen to see, print out that card, and then compare it side by side.
which is significantly faster than the old system. Back when you used to work for the FBI, back when I started, there were fingerprint examiners who had to go through just shelves and shelves of cards to try to see if they would match someone, right?
Right. It was called the Henry system, and each finger was given a numerical classification as well as a alphabetized class as well.
And when you're making a determination with regard to fingerprints, we talked about that ridge data and islands and swirls and all that really good stuff. How many points of data are you trying to, at a minimum, trying to have before you can actually make a match?
Well, there's no real set number. That's been something that's been debated for years. There's really no set number. Again, if you have an entire, you have class characteristics, like you have the pattern, as I spoke of, a whirl, loop, or an arch, it's much easier to determine that way. If you don't have the actual class pattern and you're not sure what part it is, you have to look at the flow of the ridges. And while every fingerprint and palm print will have the same type of characteristics, they'll have bifurcations, they'll have ending ridges, just to name a few, dots, just to name the same, some of the terms they use. But you have to make sure that they maintain the same spatial relationship in the latent print as it would in the ink print or the record print. So in other words, you could have a bifurcation. First off, you have to make sure it's going the same. That's a single ridge that bifurcates into two and continues through the pattern. You would have to go ahead and make sure that it was always flowing in this exact direction, the correct direction, but also make sure that the intervening ridges was the same. You couldn't have, between one characteristic and another, you couldn't have two ridges in between it and three in the other one. It's not going to match. So you have to break it down quite a bit.
Appreciate that explanation. Directing your attention back to Q38, I think we had left off at. This is the west wall of the stairwell at the top of the stairs, 30 inches above the railing, 9 inches north of the trim. This fingerprint, again, was sufficient, but was not identified either in the system or to any of your known standards, correct?
Correct.
So we also know specifically, because there was sufficient enough data and you did have Mr. Hunter's standards, it was not Mr. Hunter's, correct?
Correct.
Directing your attention to Q39, the west wall of the stairwell at the top of the stairs, 36 inches above the railing and 24 inches north of the trim. That print had no value, correct?
Correct.
Q40, external of the door trim at apartment 11, 67 inches up high, that print had no value.
Correct.
You couldn't compare it to anything.
Yes, sir.
Q41, the east wall of the stairwell, again, at the top of the stairs, 25 inches above the handrail, 12 inches north of the door trim, again, no value, correct?
Correct.
Let me direct your attention to, I believe, CST Gerber, now Kuzma. Yes, I think that's how her names went. Q42 was the one fingerprint that was lifted from the Oldsmobile, right? The door handle of the interior driver's right side rear door of the 1992 white Oldsmobile 98, bearing tag G95DLN, correct?
Correct, sir.
And that fingerprint was not identified to anyone that you knew,
That's correct.
but there was a sufficient sample, and it just didn't match any of the known standards that you had or match in the APHIS system, correct?
Correct.
So, and you specifically can rule out that fingerprint belonging to Mr. Hunter because you had his known standards, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the fingerprint from the Oldsmobile did not belong to Mr. Hunter, correct?
That fingerprint was not identified to him, no.
It did not belong to Mr. Hunter, correct?
No, it did not belong to Mr. Hunter.
Thank you. The Q43, I remember in CSD Kuzma's testimony, she took one fingerprint from the car, but she'd also taken a few before she was told to stand down, I believe, up there at the location in Bay Run. So Q43 is the inner edge of the door jamb on the south side door of apartment 12. This is 48 inches from the floor, and that fingerprint was also not identified, correct?
Correct.
And that was, again, a sufficient enough sample that it could have matched, but it didn't match any of the standards that you had, didn't match anything in the APHIS system, correct?
Correct.
But you didn't have the standards of Joyce or Joseph Butler who lived in apartment 12, did you?
I did not know of them, no.
Q44, the inner edge of the door jamb on the south side of apartment 11, that print had no value, correct?
Correct, sir.
And Q45, the south wall, top stairwell, just east of the fire extinguisher box, 57 inches from the floor, that print had no value, correct?
Correct.
Fair to say that's all of the prints that you examined in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And specifically, as we discussed, none of these prints were linked in apartment 11 to Demorris Hunter, correct?
No, they were not.
And none of the prints were linked from the white Oldsmobile found in Walgreens in Sanford to Demorris Hunter, were they?
No, they were not.
Let me have a moment. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any redirect?
This is probably a stupid question, but I forgot to ask you earlier. Are fingerprints unique to individuals?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And how many of the fingerprints that you examined of those 45 were of no value?
How many were no value? May I refer again? Appears to be 15.
Thank you, sir. No other questions, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused.
Yes, ma'am.
You are free to go, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
And ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time to take a morning break. I'm going to have the same instructions I've had for you before. Do not discuss the case among yourselves. Don't discuss it with anyone else. Do not do any independent research while you're away from us. Leave your pads and pens on the chairs. They will be there when you return. I'm going to ask that you be back in 15 minutes and we will resume the trial at that time.
Jury exiting?
Good morning, Miss Kathy. They got an uphill battle. I think because he's already got 110 years for something similar and he was in the vicinity using a fake name and he was driving her car. I don't think he did it by himself. I think he was part of it though. That's just me. I don't think he did. I don't think it was just him, because if they in that little bit of space, it's only 2 to 3 feet in between apartment doors, and somebody got holes in their walls and their purses ransacked. And strangulation is no quick nor quiet situation. So they heard that shit, or they was there helping.
be seated. State, you may call your next witness.
State calls Terry Cool.
Faithful and right under the scene. Please solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Related to the prosecutor, did they not say that up front?
Would you state your name and spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
My name is Terry Kuehl, Kuehl.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Ms. Kuhl, how are you employed?
I'm sorry.
How are you employed now?
I'm retired.
And before you retired, how were you employed?
I had worked as an arson investigator for Harris County in
Wait a minute, wasn't the fingerprint guy's name Kewen? Maybe it's no relation.
Texas.
Harris County is with Houston is the main city in Harris.
Y'all talking about people being related and shit. Now I'm on high alert.
How long were you an arson investigator, fire marshal investigator in Harris County?
I was an arson investigator in the city of LaPorte from 92 to 97. And then from 97 to 2005, I was in Harris County as an arson investigator.
Ma'am, tell us if you would, the training that you went through to be qualified as an arson investigator.
I went to Texas A&M and took the basic classes of investigating. And then I went back to Texas A&M and took arson investigation, and then went back and took fatality fire investigations. And every year I would go at least twice a year back to A&M for continuing education classes.
And the courses that you had to take at Texas A&M, how long did these courses last?
At least a week up to 2 weeks.
Okay. And in addition to formal training at Texas A&M, what other training and experience do you have in fire investigation?
I went to the NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency, and took classes from them. I went to an FBI class and took classes, investigative classes there. And several different agencies around would hold different classes on investigations.
Ms. Kuhl, do you have a judgment as to how many fires you have investigated over the course of your career?
I quit counting at 1,000.
Do you recall what year you quit counting?
Probably about the third or fourth year of my employment.
Okay. So I take it from this that it is common for a fire investigator to be called out to a structure fire or a vehicle fire. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a judgment, Ms. Kuhl, as to how many times you have testified in court in the field of arson investigation?
Several, many.
That'd be more than 10, more than 20?
Probably between 10 to 20.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer Ms. Kuhl as a witness qualified to testify to opinion testimony with respect to fire and arson investigation.
Any blood here?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
When was the last time that you worked as an arson investigator?
In 05, December of 05.
So more than 20 years ago.
Yes.
You don't currently work as an expert in that field, correct?
I was never an expert.
You aren't currently employed as an arson investigator, correct?
No, not now.
And you aren't a member of any organization?
Not now.
involving Arson investigators?
Not now.
And you haven't kept up with the current standards or current education for arson investigators?
No, I have not.
And I believe I recall from your depositions that you had previously testified in only perhaps 2 cases that actually went to trial?
In Houston, yes.
Yes. And those were before this case in 2002?
Yes.
And in the present case, you've never actually completed any investigation because you were never able to get to the inside of the van, correct?
Correct.
Didn't run any tests?
We didn't do that back then.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. The court will permit her to render her opinion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Cool, in 2002, about the end of July, specifically July the 30th of 2002, at about 12:50 in the morning, were you called out to investigate a vehicle fire?
Yes, sir, I was.
And at the time in July of 2002, that you were called out to investigate this vehicle fire that we're talking about, were you current on all of your training, education, experience, and necessary certifications?
Yes, sir, I was.
You were actively working as an arson investigator in 2002, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
And did you investigate a vehicle fire
Yes, sir.
on July the 30th of 2002?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, if I may approach. Ma'am, I'm showing you what is marked for identification, the State's Exhibit AL Alpha Lima. If you would take a look at this document and tell me if you can recognize it.
Yes, sir. It's out of a key map.
What do you recognize that to be?
The location of the van fire that I was called to.
And does this map truly and accurately depict Houston, Harris County,
Yes, sir.
Houston, Harris County, Texas?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would offer State's Exhibit AL, subject to judicial notice, as the next consecutive exhibit.
Any objection?
No, sir.
AL will be admitted as State's Exhibit 38.
May I publish, Your Honor? Ms. Cool, you should have it on the screen in front of you and also on the screen behind you. Where was the van located, if you would, please, ma'am?
It was right about there.
Ms. Cool, you can use this by moving it around and it moves the little cursor around. So I'm going to let you do that before I write it.
Okay.
Need to get it on that map back there, yeah.
It's a little bit
Yeah.
tricky.
One there.
That would be toward the bottom of the map, just a bit. So what is the main highway running through here?
This is the Beltway.
And just a bit north of the Beltway.
It's north of the Beltway and east of 288, which is here.
Now, Ms. Cool, if you would, let me get you to describe the area where the van was found, and you went to, the scene that you went to.
It was isolated. There was no street lights. It was just total darkness. There was no buildings or anything. It was just a big field. To the west, it was a big field. And then I believe on the other side, it was a field. There was no development out there.
Very rural area,
Yes,
very deserted area.
yes.
And I believe you said there were no structures close by. No, were there any buildings or residences close to the scene? where the
Not
van was found?
not in that block. No, there wasn't any in that area.
And how heavily traveled was this side road where the van was found?
It wasn't.
Tell us, if you would, Ms. Cool, when you arrived on scene at about a little before 1 o'clock in the morning, what did you find?
There was an abandoned, burnt vehicle, a van, and a city of Houston police car. The fire department had already left, and it was just us, and he gave me his case report, and then he left.
So you said the fire department had already left.
Fire department had already left.
Was this Houston Fire Department or county?
Houston Fire Department.
So you don't know exactly what means they employed to put the fire out, I guess.
Just water, because there was water everywhere. No,
Probably flooded it.
they didn't use foam or anything, just
Okay.
water.
The fire was dead out when you got there, correct?
Yes, it was.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Nay.
Ms. Cool, I'm showing you what is marked by identification. It states Exhibit A-M, Alpha Mary. Take a look at it, which has previously been shown to defense counsel. Ma'am, take a look at this series of photographs and tell me if you can recognize what they are.
Yes, sir. That's the van that was on the location.
You would go ahead and flip through the rest of them, if you would. And when you're done, tell us if these photographs truly and accurately reflect the land as you found at that time.
Yes, sir, they do.
Thank you, Ms. Cool. Your Honor, I'll offer states Exhibit A-M as the next consecutive number. No objection there.
AM will be admitted as State's Exhibit 39.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Nay.
Ms. Cool, looking at the photograph that's displayed, photograph number 1 in the lower left, right-hand corner, what is this?
It's a burnt van.
This is the van that you found on July the 30th at about 12:50 a.m.
Yes, sir, it is.
And how would you describe the fire damage to the van? Would you describe it as extensive, or what would you
It was a
categorize it?
total destruction.
Ma'am, I'm showing you second photograph, number 2 in the lower right-hand corner. What is that a photograph of?
Of the front of the vehicle.
Had the hood been raised by the time you arrived?
Yes, sir. This is exactly the way it was when I arrived.
Okay, so I guess the suppression units raised the hood.
I have no idea.
Okay. Was there any point of origin of a fire that could be located within the engine compartment of the vehicle?
No, sir.
And turning to the third photograph in the series, number 3, the lower right-hand corner, what does this photograph show?
It was taken from the driver's side into the front of the van.
There's a large amount of white debris under and to the other side of the steering column.
Mhm.
What is that, if you can tell?
I believe it was the plastic covering that covers the engine.
It's what we used to call the doghouse, right?
Um,
And there is no upholstery left on the seats?
No, sir.
Now, turning to the next photograph, photograph 4, numbered at the lower right-hand corner. What is this a photograph of, please, ma'am?
That is the photograph that I took from looking in through the back windows towards the front.
Okay, and towards the front, we can see the 2 burned seats
Yes, sir.
and the engine compartment that's destroyed.
Yes, sir.
And in about the middle, toward a bit toward the right, there are some dark circular objects that are shown in this photograph. What is that?
Bed springs,
Bed springs?
like mattress springs.
I assume those were metal?
Yes, sir.
Was there any of the fabric or non-metal component of that set of bed springs remaining?
I don't remember. I just know that it was intact. The mattress was, the springs, they were all intact there.
Okay. Now, ma'am, when you arrived on scene or during the course of your investigation, did this vehicle have a license plate?
No, sir. No, sir, it did not.
Was there any evidence that you could see that the license plate had been destroyed by the fire?
I could not find a license plate.
Now, looking at the inside of the van, I believe you said that there was a mattress and box springs.
It was just the mattress was what I,
Was there other material located in the back of the van? Lumber or anything of that nature?
yes, sir, there was, looked like a large, like a tree branch. It was a large piece of wood. And there was pieces of charred lumber, like a bunch of trash had been put in there.
I know it kind of begs the question here, but wood is combustible, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And mattresses are combustible, aren't they?
Yes, sir, they are.
Was the gas tank filler cap open or closed?
It was missing. It was open. The door was open and the cap was missing.
Was there any debris found in the filler tube?
Yes, sir.
What is the significance of that, ma'am?
Intentional for it to burn. They could have put something down in there. You know, there was debris down in there, which is, if it was not intentionally set, there wouldn't be anything there.
So in other words, that would be consistent with someone sticking an object down the filler tube and lighting it?
Yes, sir.
Were there any remaining combustible materials within the back of the van?
Not inside.
Were you able to determine, based upon your investigation and based on your training, education, and experience as a fire investigator, what the point of origin of this fire was?
It was inside the van.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not the fire was intentionally set?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that opinion, ma'am?
That it was intentionally set.
This was not an accidental fire?
No, sir, it was not.
This was not an electrical fire?
No, sir, it was not.
How can you tell that it was not an electrical fire?
I don't believe there's anything electrical in the back of the van.
Okay, that would rule it out.
Yes, sir.
Were you able, with the tools and such available to you in 2002, to determine whether or not some sort of an accelerant was used?
I could not at that time. At that time that I was employed, we did not have anything. We would take samples, but I was unable to get into the van to take
Okay.
samples.
And when I say an accelerant, explain for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that means in fire investigation terms.
Any combustible liquid such as gas, gasoline, cigarette lighter, fluid. Any kind of liquid that would burn.
Ma'am, after you concluded your investigation, what was done with the van?
I had called to request for a wrecker to come pick it up, and I waited approximately 30 minutes and no one showed up, which was not surprising because of the area that it was in. So I put one of my ID tags on it, and I believe I had another call that I had to leave to go to. So I left it.
Ma'am, were you able to find a vehicle identification number or a VIN number on this vehicle?
No, sir, the VIN number was destroyed.
Are you familiar with the practice of car manufacturers putting a confidential VIN number in various secret locations on their products?
Yes, sir, I am.
Did you attempt to find the confidential VIN number on this vehicle?
I did not, but I put in a request that it be found from City of Houston ID.
And did you participate in locating the confidential VIN number?
No, sir, I did not. One of my partners did.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Good morning.
Morning.
How long did it take you, how do I back up to the map? Looking at our map again, how long did it take you to get to the scene of the crime on, I think you indicated that the van was located on Furman as an Avenue Road?
It's a road.
Road, okay. How long did it take you to get to Furman the night that you got there?
I couldn't recall.
Where were you coming from?
At that time, I'm not sure. I could, because I was the only one working that night for the whole county.
Do you remember what time of day you got called?
It was around midnight, I believe.
Were you working the graveyard shift or third
Yes.
shift?
I was working the night shift
What were those hours back then?
from 11 to 6 in the morning.
Okay. And where would have, if you had come from the headquarters, where would that have been?
Well, we worked out of our vehicle.
Okay. You didn't go back to the Harris County Fire headquarters or anything like that?
No, I didn't stay there. We pretty much kind of just roamed around.
At the time that you went to that location, what was the population of Houston, Texas?
I'm not sure at that time.
It's 2002. Were there 1 million people?
There were a lot of people inside the city of Houston, yes.
And you drove to the scene. Do you remember the route you took to get to Furman?
Yes, I had, do you want me to point?
Sure. Well, you actually pointing on that, it's not going to do any good, but if you look back on the map behind you or use the map in front of you and just sort of say.
Okay,
I get your magical pointer. Oh, yeah, Mr. Buxton can control the magical pointer. So it's a cursor. You know what? Let's go back. Let's just leave it there.
you can leave it there and I can describe.
The great big fat highway that runs north and south.
North and
right
south.
in the middle of the map. Is that the direction that you came from north to south?
That's 288. And I remember I believe I was out in the west area and I came around the loop, around 610 loop, which goes around Houston. And then I took 288 south. And then I exited off on Beltway 8 and then went up on Furman.
Okay. And the vehicle itself was located just a little ways up on Furman, right?
It was about halfway up.
Okay. And when you got there, you said the fire department had already extinguished the blaze?
Yes, sir. Everybody was gone except for a HPD officer.
And as you sit here today, you can't tell us how long the van had been in the location in Furman before it caught fire, correct?
I have no idea.
So you have no idea when it got there.
No,
You have no idea who drove it there.
no, I don't.
Have no idea how long it was there before it caught fire, correct?
That's correct.
Have no idea who may have set it on fire, correct?
No, sir, I do not.
As you sit here today, you have no independent evidence or information which would link my client, Demorris Hunter, to the burning of this van, correct?
No, sir, I do not.
What you did do was you made observations from the outside of the vehicle to base your opinions, correct?
That's correct.
And you believe that based on that the fire started in the back?
Yes, sir, because it was still hot. It was, steamy, and I was not going to crawl through the debris to get to the inside.
And, but the fire wasn't so hot as to burn the metal springs on the inside, correct?
No, sir, just the combustibles.
You were able to take photographs of the van through the windows, correct?
Yes, sir.
If I recall correctly, you stood on a little step stool or step ladder
I have a little stool.
to look into the windows to take those photographs.
Yes, sir.
You never were able to get inside the vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
Never able to do any sampling or tests of what may or may not have been the accelerant, correct?
Correct.
Even though you say that that it's your opinion that the fire was started intentionally, you don't know if it was a kerosene lamp that was knocked over on the inside?
No, sir, I do not.
Could that have possibly created a fire that burned a mattress and burned other items inside the van?
If there was a kerosene lamp in there, yes, sir, it could have.
Were you able to determine if there was or wasn't?
I did not see anything.
But you weren't able to actually get inside and do any further investigation, correct?
No, just from my photographs.
And I just want to make sure there was no DNA that was able to be pulled from the van, correct?
Correct.
No fingerprints, correct?
Correct.
No videotapes from any of the local or surrounding gas stations that would show anybody filling up a gas can or getting some sort of accelerant from the location, correct?
There wasn't any gas stations around that area. No, sir.
There's no gas stations anywhere on any of those highways?
Not the way I came in.
After you tagged the vehicle and left, you have no idea how long it stayed in that location before it was towed, correct?
I believe it was towed the next day because my coworker who had come on the shift after I was on, he had called me to tell me that, that he had got the notification for ID.
You worked at the time for Harris County, which is
Yes.
the county that Houston is in, correct? But then there's also the city of Houston, correct?
Yes.
Sort of like we have Orange County and city of Orlando, correct? This ended up in a city of Houston impound yard.
Yes.
And after that, they took over.
Yes.
presumptively, right?
Yes.
But they actually did no further investigation as well, correct?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
Just very briefly, Ms. Cool, the photographs that you showed the jury that you took on the scene that night, those reflect accurately the condition of the van when you tagged it and left the scene, do they
Yes.
not?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused?
She may.
Any questions from the jury? I see none.
Let this lady go, please.
State, you may call your next witness.
State calls Dennis Finch.
For 110 years, Haley. 110 years in California. But even though somebody pointed out earlier that it would be a full-on appeals process, please understand that Florida does not offer an extended stay like California. Florida is offering him a final destination. Does Dennis,
I do.
You may be seated.
yeah, he already served 110. Same like Florida trying to shorten that shit.
State your name and spell your last name for the court reporter, please.
It's Dennis Finch, Finch.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Where do you work?
Presently,
Sure.
Baylor College Medicine.
Okay, what did you do before that?
I was a police officer in Houston, Texas.
When you were a police officer in Houston, what type of role did you have?
In auto theft,
Let's focus back. Let's talk about 2002. What did you do for Houston PD back then?
I was working in auto theft at the car compound. It's a storage lot.
Auto theft at the compound.
Correct.
All right.
And Crump.
How long did
They're
you do
getting a
that
work out
job?
today
of
'cause
auto
that
theft?
first deputy.
I got there 1993 until I retired in 2008. That's 2007, 2008.
Let me direct your attention back to August 5th of 2002. Were you asked to perform a confidential VIN or vehicle identification number inspection on a burned Chevy van?
Yes,
And did you write a report back then when you did that, documenting what you found and those kinds
yes,
of things? Since it's been so long, have you reviewed that report recently?
yes, sir.
He leaned back and he gonna be
Where
prosecuted
would the
before the
van
Lord.
have been when you conducted that confidential VIN inspection?
On the dash,
Sorry.
on the car dash.
Where physically would the van have been located? At a PV lot or some impound lot?
Don't quite understand your question.
That's okay. Where was the van itself located when you went to do this inspection?
We have a burn area. It's at the rear of our storage lot.
What exactly is well, first of all, what is a VIN number?
It's a vehicle identification number. It identifies every vehicle on the road nowadays.
What is a confidential VIN inspection, what you did in this case?
It's I guess a police tool to find and obtain VIN when the public VIN and the license plate and the Mylar has been burned beyond recognition.
So are there locations on every vehicle where there is a VIN number obvious to anybody who looks at it?
Yes, sir.
Generally, where are those located?
It's on the car dash, on the driver's side.
Are there other locations on the vehicle itself that have that VIN number or partial VIN number as well?
We got the Mylar, that's the door jamb on the driver's door. It's a sticker.
What about other places that, for instance, if the vehicle was burned up and those things didn't exist, that you could look for to determine the VIN number?
You know, you can find the confidential VIN number.
And where are those generally located, or are they different for every vehicle?
It varies on each and every vehicle.
We all probably know here VIN numbers have various letters and numbers on a long string of letters and numbers, right?
Right.
Do those individual letters and numbers mean anything specifically?
Normally it's the first character is the assembly plant or what country. And the second character, and this is an American made vehicle. Second character is the type of vehicle or what make it is. And then further down, it shows a character shows what type of engine, the size, the color, the model, etc.
So those numbers aren't just random, they actually mean something in that sequence.
Correct.
Okay. Showing you what's been introduced to states 39. Do you remember doing a confidential VIN inspection on the van we see in the photograph?
No, sir.
Okay. Does your report indicate that you did such a confidential VIN inspection?
Correct.
How have you done these types of inspections in the past?
Numerous.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury what you did to find the VIN number associated with the van that you examined? Where you looked, what you did, kind of your process?
Can't quite reveal the confidential VIN.
Okay.
It's not for general public knowledge.
Okay.
It's a police tool where you have the VIN number has been burned, and the other means to identify that particular vehicle.
Without going into the specifics, can you tell me, were you able to locate a confidential VIN on this van that you examined?
Yes,
Was it a complete VIN number or was it a partial VIN number?
partial.
And why would it only be a partial?
That's when you have a confidential VIN. It don't normally have, on American-made vehicles, it don't have a full VIN. It just have a partial, like a eight or 9 characters.
I think the VIN is normally like 16 digits.
16 is the full VIN.
The partial VIN, the confidential VIN that you're looking for only has the first like 8 or 9.
Correct.
Okay. So once you found this confidential partial VIN number on the vehicle, what did you do with that information?
Insert that confidential VIN into my computer and come back as a stolen vehicle in Orlando, Florida.
Were you, once you found it was the stolen vehicle and the partial VIN numbers matched, were you able to determine the complete VIN number?
Correct.
And did you note that VIN number in your report?
Correct.
Do you have a copy of your report handy?
No, sir.
Thank you. Approach.
You may.
Show you a copy of your report that Mr. Burr was kind enough to hand me. Take your time. Recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What was the VIN number that you determined was associated with the van you inspected?
Let me recite the whole 16.
Yes, sir, please.
Have 2, G George, C Charles, D as in David, G as in George, 15. Z zebra. 5, N as in Nora, 4144 373.
Let me show you what's been introduced to State's Exhibit 14, certified tag and title history of a white Chevy van belonging to Henry Fields. You see the VIN number on the official documents from Tallahassee regarding this van?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is the VIN number of the official title records for Henry Fields' white Chevy van, and that's the VIN number that you found during your confidential VIN inspection.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once you found the vehicle that had been reported stolen out of Orlando, what did you do with that information?
I went ahead and did the report on our computer system and sent a radiogram to Orlando PD.
What's a radiogram?
It's
What it sound like, sir?
it's access on your computer. It's just, you just hit one button and the screen comes up. It just says radiogram.
Telegram, moneygram, radiogram.
It has a lot of blanks that you just fill in.
You see, he got
Kind of like an
trouble
electronic
putting
form
words
that you send to
together. Just
Orlando Police Department.
come on now.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And when you researched this vehicle and the VIN number, was Orlando the only place that this vehicle had been reported stolen from?
No, sir. I mean,
Did the record show had been reported only by Orlando PD?
correct. Yes, sir.
Did that complete your involvement in this case?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Found the van on Burr.
Morning.
Morning.
Thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good. Are you?
Flew in from Houston.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about the weather. So I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you've done numerous of these confidential VIN searches and that the impound lot over at Houston Police Department had a separate section for burned vehicles, right?
It's normally at the rear of the compound.
So Houston, huge city, I would imagine stolen cars are pretty common. Get all kinds of stolen cars in the lot.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if you remember but I took your deposition last year around March. It's been right about a year. I asked you about roughly how many of these burned vehicles show up at the lot a week. Do you remember my asking you that?
It varies. You just can't really set a number.
Sure, I wouldn't expect.
Yeah,
But what's a low number?
one.
One, and a high number?
High number would probably be 6 or 8.
In a week?
Yes, sir.
And basically throughout the year. I assume sometimes of the year it may go up or down, and no predicting that.
Yes, sir.
But it sounds like in any case, you could get many dozens of burned out vehicles over at the impound lot that require your services.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. That's all I have.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just one more question, Mr. Finch. Do you remember what day this was that this happened? When you did the search for the confidential VIN?
The date?
Yes,
Or the day?
Yes, sir.
I don't remember.
Not the day of the week, the date.
I think it was August 5th.
That's close enough. If your report says August 3rd, that sounds right too?
Yes, sir.
2002?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have, sir. Thank you very much.
Any redirect?
There you are.
Any questions from the jury? Is this witness free to go?
He is.
You are free to go, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
State, you may call your next witness.
Thank you.
State calls Monroe Gage.
He do look like Grandpa Charlie. Guess it's been 24 years. Everybody got a little older, a little slower, a little wider.
You may be seated. Sir, can you state your name and spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
It's Monroe Gage, Gage.
Oh, I apologize. I misspoke your name. Sorry about that.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury again?
Monroe Gage.
What do you do for a living now?
I'm retired.
Previous to that, specifically back in February 21st of 2003, where did you work?
For the Houston Police Department.
What did you do for Houston PD back then?
I was a canine officer.
On that specific day, did you assist the FBI in arresting an individual you came to know as Demorris Andy Hunter?
Yes, I did.
Without going into the details of how you located Mr. Hunter, did you and other members of the FBI travel to a house in Harris County, Texas?
Yes.
What was the address of that house?
5603 Belmore,
That's in which city?
Harris County, Houston.
I'm showing you what's been already introduced as State's Exhibit 38. Do you see that address you just described on this map here?
Yes, I do.
Does that fairly and accurately show the location, general location of that address on the map?
Yes.
All right. We have heard previously that a burned van was located around 14,000 Furman Road in Houston, which is also on the map. Based on the map, about how far away?
The sad part is when I saw him walking up, I thought that was a uniform, and it ain't.
where you went to?
Approximately 6 to 7 miles.
Did you all, you said you were a canine
Yes.
officer then?
Yes.
What was the name of your canine?
Falco,
All right. When you arrived at this house on Belmark Street, right? When you arrived there, where did you position yourself and kind of walk the jury through what happened?
I went with my canine partner to the southwest corner of the house. There was an 8-foot picket fence that surrounded the house, the back part. I took a position behind there to be safe.
And did someone, other law enforcement officers were there with you, right?
Yes,
Did one of those other law enforcement officers notify the suspect in the house somehow?
Yes, sir. He called him on the phone and asked him to step out the front door.
Did the suspect come out?
Yes, he did.
Did he come out the door that he was told to come out of, or a different door?
He came out a different door,
Okay, which door did he come out of?
the back door.
Were you able to see him come out, or how did you know he came out that door?
I heard the door open up, and then next thing I saw somebody running.
Did you hear anybody yelling at this person who walked out the door?
He took
All of
off,
us was yelling. One of the FBI guys were yelling, and I was
took
yelling.
off on y'all ass.
What did this person do after he walked out the door and everybody was yelling at him?
He ran towards the northwest corner of the house, at which time I pursued them with my canine dog, which was on leash.
Did you eventually make contact with the person that ran?
As I got up to the suspect, I ordered him to stop and lay down on the ground where I'd release the canine.
After this person exited the rear door, and what were you and other law enforcement officers telling him to do?
To lay down on the ground.
He didn't comply with that.
Not at that time, he didn't.
So after this person ran and you actually made contact with him with your canine, what happened?
The suspect stopped. He kind of looked around for a second and like he was going to run towards the fence and jump over. I then ordered him again to lay down. I was going to release my canine, at which time he got down on his knees and then he complied.
And at the time he finally chose to get down on his knees and comply, what was your canine doing?
He was barking and trying to get at him.
And you said you had him on a leash to control him?
Yes, I did.
What kind of dog was your canine?
A Dutch Shepherd.
Once this person laid down and complied, was he handcuffed?
Yes, he was.
Did you ask the person that you just arrested his name?
After I did, yes.
Okay, what did he say?
It was Demorris Hunter.
Did you confirm that there was an arrest warrant out of Orlando, Florida for Demorris Hunter for homicide?
I didn't confirm it. The homicide officer or the FBI guys did.
Okay.
And I went back and got the information from them.
Once, I know it's been many years, but you happen to see the person you arrested here in court?
Yes, I do.
Please point him out and tell me what he's
The
wearing.
defendant in the white shirt,
Is he wearing a
glasses.
jacket or no jacket?
without the jacket in the middle.
Your Honor, may the record reflect no witnesses identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
Once the defendant was handcuffed, what was done with him?
They brought him to the patrol car. I went and put my canine up, and then I came back and got the rest of my information. I went to him and asked him for his name to complete my paperwork. He did give me his name, his birthday.
He gave you his birthday as well.
Yes, he did.
Were you the person involved in transporting him to the jail?
No, I wasn't.
Did you have any involvement in eventually getting Mr. Hunter back?
No, I did not.
Thank you, sir. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Mr. Gage.
Good morning.
You don't know anything about the van that you were just asked about in the state's direct examination, correct?
No, I don't.
You don't know anything about that location, Furman Road or anything like that?
I know the location, but I don't know anything about it.
5603 Belmark is a neighborhood, correct?
Yes, it is.
How many people were living in Houston in 2002?
How many people? I have no idea.
No, fair to say more than 1 million?
I'm sure.
Okay. How close was the 5603 Belmark Road to Houston's Hobby Airport?
Hobby, it's about 8-10 miles.
Okay. And about how far away was the Astrodome?
It's the same. It's about 8 miles.
The opposite direction though, right? So in between there, we're talking about a significant amount of neighborhoods.
Yes, yes, sir.
You said you worked with Harris County Sheriff's Office or? was
No,
it-
Houston Police
Houston
Department,
Police Department.
K-9 and SWAT.
How many, do you know how many stolen vehicle cases were in Houston in 2002?
I have no idea.
Fair to say more than 10?
I have no idea. Oh, yeah, definitely more than 10.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Any questions from the jury? Seeing none, is this witness free to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
You are free to go, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You have a blessed day.
You as well. see the attorneys up here for a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a good time to take a lunch break. I have conferred with the attorneys. We will not be going to closing argument or deliberation today. That will happen tomorrow. But there will be no need for sequestrations. You don't have to worry about being put up in a hotel tomorrow night. You'll be able to
Y'all, it's gonna be
deliberate as long
quick.
as you need tomorrow. And if you need to come back on Thursday, which I don't anticipate, then you'll be able to do that. I'm going to ask that you be back at the location designated by the court deputies at 1:15, and we will resume this trial at 1:15. Do not discuss the case among yourselves. Don't discuss it with anyone else. Do not do any independent research while you're away from us. Leave your pads and pens on the chairs. They will be there when you return, and I will see you back at 1:15.
Wait a minute. I told y'all it was gonna be quick. Did I say that this morning? After all that information they crammed in yesterday, I said it was going to be quick, nah? Yeah, we're going. So they said, well, they were saying today, but as she just said, that's not the schedule. They're not going to do it today. They're going to do it. They're going to do it tomorrow. Okay. So, yeah.
Right, is there anything we need to take up?
So I just checked in. So I got a brief 1, 2, 3, 2 video of and then a quick little synopsis of him and why we talking about 2002 and 2026 when there was no bingo bango, there was no aha, there was no light bulb, there was no drop of DNA, like why it took this long for us to get here. So we're at lunch. We're getting ready to go to lunch until 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as she stated. So we are going to hop off. But again, after we're going to hear the rest of the testimony today, that means closings instructions are tomorrow, and then they are going to deliberate, and they're not keeping them. That was the other thing I heard. I was like, are they really trying to keep these people? I think they were trying to hide or not bring up the fact that he already serving 110 years in California. How do y'all, we're going to talk about it when we come back. We might come back a few minutes early because how do y'all feel about this case? At first I was like, I'm not watching that. Why are we watching somebody who already got 110 years? Then I was just like, well, if he is serial unaliver, then he just be doing shit. But truthfully, I think he really is only convicted of the girlfriend in Oakland. And 20 years ago, I wasn't even here 20 years ago. I have no idea. And if you asked about 10 years ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But I think he's only convicted for the girlfriend in Oakland. He's suspected to be connected to a string of unalivings, but that's not what he's convicted for. And this is just one more. So are you trying to tie this to the string? Like, was the, friend, you gonna fall out. That you gonna fall out. They were slapping each other at the house party. You gonna fall out. All right, y'all. So I did, like I said, we did somewhat recap yesterday. We are on lunch until 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll come back, finish up day 2, and as you heard, closings tomorrow. Florida don't be playing. But again, we know Florida is offering him the final destination. They are not offering him the extended stay that California gave him. So still is a big deal. All right. See y'all in a few. Get something to eat.